You. So, very good afternoon to all. Hope everybody is safe from COVID. Everybody is doing good. Hope everybody's family and business, everything are in good terms now. Because I know that we had a very wrong time. I would say that it was a challenging for everybody, whether it is a student or a working person or a homemaker, anybody. But I know that you all have taken the challenge and seen the days, and you know how to take it into the future also for your youngsters. That's with from my end. And to start with the session, I think I should ask the question first and then start the session. How would that look? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, please. And anybody who are on your mute, who is being muted by yourself or from any others, like from the host, you can ask them to unmute if you have any questions or while answering. Because having a session, especially on the virtual meetings, as like what we are having today, is not going to put us completely towards the topic because we know the reason behind that. One is, yes, any human who can concentrate on any talk will be maximum 30 seconds. I'm not talking about minutes, 30 seconds. After that, we will be flying with a lot of other thoughts which will be running in our mind. So I would love to have the interactive session rather than me talking. I would love to listen to you people about the topic, what I have chosen to talk to you. The topic would be regarding the digital forensics and the biometrics. What is it? It is playing the role in our cyberspace. So, what do you think the digital space is all about? When we talk about the forensics, there are so many things. So, what do you feel that digital forensics is all about? Because, anyways, I'm showing you the agenda today. It will be like about the computer or digital forensics to know about it, the types of it, the evidences, the phases, lot many things are there in the agenda. Anyways, apart from the agenda, my question is what you think is digital forensics is all about? What does comes into your mind when you think about digital forensics? Anybody can answer me. And anyways, we are not here to go ahead and judge anyone. It is a conversation what we are having. Sorry. Yeah, anybody. I see Jagannath, Bini, Priya, Shruti, Ashutosh, Kumari, Deepika. So many people are there. Yes, please. So what do you think the digital forensics is all about?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Yeah, Kritika, right?
Hanji. Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yes, Kritika.
Ma'am, digital forensics basically is everything that is stored electronically. That is identifying, accessing that data, then acquiring that data, then what are processes we can do on the digital data. Basically, this is, I think, digital forensics is.
And is digital forensics is only for your digital space? That is only the to the electronic media, or it is for anything else also? Is it required for other parts also? Is it only relating to your electronic medium?
Not basically electronic, but it may include other parts also.
Right. So just to understand what the digital forensics is all about, because today's topic is being taken as digital forensics only. It is a scientific method what we use to investigate and analyze, like whenever there is an incident happen. There are so many incidents we will be facing. So when we want to gather the evidence, we need to do the forensics to understand what are the evidence I can get in. Say for example, if there is any kind of incident in our real world, so now you know the difference between the real world and the digital world, right? Because maximum of our life is being led in the digital world now rather than in the real world. Whether meeting the people, communicating with them, or doing some purchase, booking something, storing something, everything is happening in the digital space more and in the real world little lesser. So if there is any incident in the real world, let me take an example. For everybody, the question is for everybody again. Say that there is a murder in a house where we had some 5 people. So after the murder, what are the first things the police team will be doing? And if anybody had watched CID, the serial, anybody had watched, what would be the situation there?
For forensic expert
Panchanama,
comes
fantastic, Mr. Dr. Ravish said. Yeah, Panchanama, yes, of course. Before that, what are the things which will happen? I'm talking in the real world, not in the digital world.
Forensic team will come and taking the trace of the any traits like fingerprint, palm print, and like that.
They will try to see if there is any evidence which has been left over there, if there is any trace, any footprints, whatever is there, they will try to go ahead and gather it. Correct?
Yeah, biometric traits so that they can recognize that person match with the criminal database or.
Right. And before all these things, we will be having the police complaint saying that there is an incident happened, and they will be the people who will go ahead and seize this place wherever the incident has happened, whether it is a house, room, hall, mall, whatever it is. They will seize the space so that they are not missing any of the evidence which is being left over there. Correct? This will be something very similar to the incidents what happens in our cyber world also. You know that there are so many kind of incident happens. What might be the incident which comes into your mind when we talk about the digital space? Apart from hacking, because I know that everybody will be fascinated with that word hacking. Apart from hacking, what comes into your mind when we talk about an incident in the digital space? What incident? Can you think about any of the incidents?
like photograph modification and data modification and identity theft, or
Identity theft.
using others' password or OTP or something authentication information.
And taking the money out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, fund transfer and forging the individual credential and doing the.
Exactly. Fantastic. So we have so many incidents which happen in the digital world, whether somebody taking your identity, personifying your identity and going ahead and they taking the money out or doing some transaction, data theft, attack on the servers where you see that the servers have been crashed. There might be some incidents where the malware has been injected, virus is been injected. And how many of you remember the ransom attacks? There are ransom attacks around the world happening, and you will see that the data is there in your laptop, but still you can't access because it has been encrypted and they are asking some ransom money. So there are so many incidents which we see in the digital world. So the concept for the forensics, we say that it is based on every contact will leave a trace behind, as we say it in the real world. And this one, we usually follow it with the Locard's exchange principle, where we say one or the other evidence will be there. That is for sure. The criminal will leave the trace behind, and then only he will go from the space where the incident has happened. Even if it is hacking or any attacks or any kind of theft he is doing, or it is a data loss, whatever we see, data theft, what we see, whatever it is happening as an incident, there is a evidence. And to get this evidence, we need to do the digital forensics. And when we talk about the digital forensics, there are so many digital forensics we have. And the digital forensics, before we know what kind of digital forensics we have, because you know that whenever it is a digital space I'm talking, there are so many digital devices we are having, and the space acquired with the digital space is very huge. I would like to ask another question. Everybody is having internet, right? That is the reason we are talking to you today. We are having the virtual conference because we have the internet. Can I know the difference between the internet and the cyberspace? Is there a difference, or it is something like same? Anybody can answer me. Is internet and cyberspace are both same, or it is different? If it is different, what is the difference? If it is same, how do you prove that it is same? Yes, team. Anybody can answer. It's a very simple question. I'm just asking two words. One is the cyberspace and the other one is internet. Everybody is having your data. Everybody is having your internet connection. So what is that difference?
Ma'am, hello, ma'am, Ashutosh here.
Hi, Ashutosh. Yes, please.
Ma'am, as per my knowledge, actually, internet is the medium to get into the cyberspace.
Okay, then what is cyberspace?
Cyberspace is like the electronic media which we are using to enter into cyber.
Okay.
Like anything, phone, computer. It's like actually I'm not well much knowledgeable in this digital forensics, but the thing which I came to know about this thing is cyberspace. The internet is the medium to get into the cyber.
Almost up to the mark, Mr. Ashutosh. As you rightly said, we are not asking the question for digital forensics. I'm asking what is cyberspace and the internet, and you are up to the mark. So when we talk about the cyberspace, we are having so many websites today. You know that. So websites are supposed to be hosted on the servers. So we have the servers over there. We have the printers. We have routers. We have switches. We have firewalls. We have computers, laptops, mobile phones. Everything is rolling around. And that space, we call it as our cyberspace. And as you rightly said, to communicate between these devices, these websites, whatever we are having to share the resources, to store the resources, we use a internet as a medium. Do we have any other medium apart from our internet? Anything comes into your mind? Any other medium?
Bluetooth.
Fantastic. That's the other medium. So then why am I not using the Bluetooth in the space of internet? Why am I using internet? Any idea?
Bluetooth
Range
is
is
limited to
limited.
distances.
Yes, range is limited. Yes, very true. Why am I asking these questions is whenever we talk about the digital forensics, always we come up with the questions to ourselves first. As an investigator, I have to ask lot many questions to myself before I giving what kind of forensics we do. What are the different type of forensics we have? First, we need to understand what is that I have to ask myself. So that is where we stand with this 5WH. That means who, where, what, when, why, and how. So these are the main objectives where we need to find the answer for. When you are going to be the investigator or whenever there is an investigation happening, they will try to find the answer for all these W's and H. Then only they will proceed saying that, yes, I need to go ahead and do the investigation, store the evidence, because whenever storing the evidence, it is another story where I have to follow a lot of procedures under that. So before that, let us figure out what are the different type of forensics we have. I have just listed a few. There are so many other forensics because we have the computer. As a computer I'm using today, I need to do a lot of forensics on the laptop or the desktop. Whenever there is an incident, say that there is an attack on my laptop, I need to do the forensics on my laptop first. Then I'll be doing the network forensics because the network is connected to my laptop. I'm talking about both my LAN, that is local area network, and my WAN, that is my wide area network. I'll be doing the forensics for my network. Then I'll be doing the forensics for all the network devices connected over there. Then I'll be doing the live forensics. Live forensics is nothing but whenever the system is still alive on the internet with the connections. I don't know how many of you remember this incident. Do you know that there was a raid in Nityananda Ashrama? It was in 2012 or 13, if I am right with the dates. They had picked up all the hard disk systems and everything. But there was a huge mistake when the evidence was collected, because there was supposed to be something called live forensics which was supposed to be done, because they had lot of devices which was still running, connected to internet and switched on. What they did was they just picked it up and bought it, which was not the right way, because whenever we talk about live forensics, that means The system is still alive. That means it is still running on the internet. The traffic is alive, and we have to go ahead and pick up all the evidences when it is alive, because the traffic is still running. This was the same issue which had happened in 2016 or 2015 also, where there was one company in JP Nagar. They were going ahead and selling the spy tools, where they can take that tool or a software, whatever we call it as, that product, and they can go ahead and spy it on the phones. That was a product which was sold, which was illegally sold, in fact, in the JP Nagar, one small company. When the raid had happened, they were supposed to do the live forensics first and then pick up the devices. But again, there was a mistake. So when we talk about the forensics also, there are procedures and there are the phases what we have to follow to get the forensics done in a right way. Even in the email forensics, we have a lot of procedures involved, as this is not the session where it has been mainly meant to explain how we do the forensics, what are the ways we follow, what are the channels we follow, how many guys. Usually whenever it is the forensics, what needs to be done, there will be the senior guy followed with the junior guys over there. That is how the forensics will be done, because whenever we have the senior experienced people above which what the theory talks about, there are so many workarounds through their experience they can give it to us. So when we talk about the evidence, that is the digital evidence, the data or the information is the value of it. Once again, there is another question for you. What is the difference between information and data? Yes, please. Anybody can pick it up. What is the difference between information and data?
Raw facts and figures are termed as data. When meaning is associated with the data, then it becomes information. Just like right now you are delivering the talk. From your perspective, it is the information. From our perspective, it is the data. And when our brain, that is the processor of the human being, processed it and take out or interprets the meaning, then it becomes the information for us.
Exactly. But let me put it in a other way around for a small correction. Whenever it is data, what we talk about, it is not only you understanding it as a human, you will be getting information out of it. That means the data for me can't be the information for me can't be a data for you, because it is readable by one person. The data means it can be any junk characters also which are sitting, and it can be the hexadecimal numbers what will be stored on the system, and especially computer can understand only data, because it will be taking the information which will be converted into the machine level language, which is nothing but your zeros and ones. At the end of the day, system will not understand anything. That is, my computer can't understand anything like a name of Kumari Deepika or Ashutosh or Kritika or Chanama or anything. It will say it is 0010101111. That is all it understands, because all our names, all our numbers, everything is going to get converted into the machine level language, which is zeros and ones, nothing but the data. But as rightly said, data might not have a right sense of it, but when it makes a sense, it becomes information. So yes, each information is also a data again. So whenever it is a data which needs to be collected, that is the reason whenever we talk about the evidences and the digital space, we usually say the data has a value for it. The data, whatever I have it in my laptop, might be valuing for some 10 crores, but whatever the data which is sitting in the bank, the bank data is usually carries more value, because the information what it has, which is being converted through the data, has more value. So the data value will be weighed according to the information what it is giving. So you must be knowing about the data loss or the data theft. Have you come across this two words, any space, any place, or any news? Anytime you have come across these things? Because you know that, let me tell you one good example for this. How many of you are getting the calls from some unknown numbers where they will be asking, saying that we are ready to give you the credit card, we are having the loans which has been approved for you, or we are giving you a free trip, blah, blah, blah. Are you getting these kind of calls?
Yes, ma'am.
Most of you will be getting. So where are they getting the phone number of Kumari Deepika or Lalit or Ashutosh or Priya, whoever it is? Where are they getting it from? How is that they are getting the data? Even I have not asked anybody to get me the credit card or a loan. So there might be a data theft or data loss which might have happened in some space. Pavitra says from website. Not really from website. Yes, of course. And some places we will be so careless. In some web space, wherever we are going ahead and browsing, some space it asks us to go ahead and log in. So what we do? Either we will choose to log in through Facebook or through Google. You accept? So when we are doing that, that means we are giving our data. Yes, data theft from job portal, social media, that is happening. At the same time, most of us are having our phone connections, bank connections, Aadhaar card is there, right? How secured are our data there? Whenever it is the information, what I am registering with the bank, what I am registering with the phone connection registration, I don't know where it is going, because you know that whenever you are trying to register for a SIM card, initially you will go ahead and write all the information like your name, phone numbers, that is the alternative phone numbers like your dad, mom, wife, husband, whoever it is, one alternate number, if at all, if you are not having the number. And if you are having the first number, you will give that first number, and then you will add all the data like your email address, your mailing address, everything you will write and give the application. And once he gives the SIM, within 20 minutes or sometimes it will be less than 10 minutes, the SIM will be active. Correct? But what is the procedure? Procedure says whenever the customer sends the application or try to register for a SIM, the application has to go to the vendor, that is our service provider, nothing but our Airtel, Spice, BSNL, whoever it is. They have to cross-check our identification, our address proof, everything, and then they have to say something as approved, then they have to give the SIM. Correct? That is the procedure. But where is it happening? The application is being given, I got a SIM, and SIM is inactive within 5-10 minutes. And I have seen being present over there. A couple of people argued with me saying that, madam, they will take a screenshot of it and they will send it, they will get the approval in within 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I said, I have seen it where the SIM is being given, application is sitting, and the guys who are going ahead and assisting us, they are still not even touched our application, the SIM is active. That means SIM is coming active and the application will be sitting with those service providers, that is in your outlets, for a day or two. And if somebody is copying your data, who is responsible? God knows. It is the same thing happening with so many spaces where we are giving our data, correct? So whenever we are giving our data, we don't know where it is being getting used. In some spaces, we know that whenever we have registered for something new, immediately we see that, and you can test this on your Facebook or anywhere else. When you try to go ahead and search for some trip, especially say that you are trying to go ahead and looking for a trip to Hong Kong. Anyways, Hong Kong has been closed. You can check in for Maldives, Oman, because Maldives, Oman, Mauritius are all open now. Once you try to do that, there will be many calls who will try to go ahead and give you a call, even though if you have not given the phone numbers. So for all these things, when we put in a case, there needs to be the forensics done, saying that where my data is being lost or where my data theft has been happened. So all these things will be checked on at the time of forensics. But really speaking, there are so many spaces where ourselves we will be agreeing with the conditions. Say like your applications, whatever you are downloading. How many of you read the disclaimer? There will be at least a sheet or two disclaimer in that, where it will be saying that we will be taking the access of your phones, blah, 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 XYZ. How many of you read that? I hardly see people reading that. How many of you have the Truecaller with you? Most of you, correct? So whenever you are having the Truecaller and when you are dialing a new number, how come it is showing the name already? Name might not be exactly the same what has been registered. Probably for Lalit or with Ashutosh, it might be saying that Ashutosh uncle. Or for Deepika, it might be saying that Deepika, my sister. How is that it is showing those kind of name, which is we call it as a short names, right? How is it showing that? What has it been doing with our data? All our phones, whenever we are having these kind of applications, already it is taking our data and it is being sent to the servers already. So whenever it is an investigation, we will be more concentrating on seeing the data, the information, the storage, the receiver, how it is being transmitted. And we will also try to see if there is any kind of other agents. We call it as agents. So let me tell you one thing. Do you know that even though if your phone is not being switched on, there is couple of tools which can be used to go ahead and activate the speaker and listen to you? How many of you know about it? I'm saying your phone is being switched off, okay? But still, we can use the tools. We can activate the speaker in your phone and we can listen to what you are talking. So when we talk about investigation, especially, we will be seeing a lot many things with the digital evidence, because once we see the digital evidence, say, let me give you an best example. Most of you are using your browsers, right? It might be your Mozilla, it might be your IE, Internet Explorer, Safari, so many things you are using. Sometimes what happens is, not sometimes, 99% is the same thing. Like whenever you are going ahead and typing something, you will be getting an automated autofill options ready for you. And sometimes the browser is storing the data by itself, correct? So say that you have visited a couple of websites. Say you have visited the websites like gambling, you have visited the websites, say like gaming, so many things you have visited. And if you have given your laptop to somebody else and the moment they type in say A, automatically it will try to refill and give you an option, because it is already storing some data in something space called cache. We call it as cache, and we have another thing called cookies. So most of you might have come across these things, right? Cache and cookies. So we will be having the evidences in so many places when we talk about the digital devices. I'm just giving an example of computers. So here we are talking about what the digital evidence is. Digital evidence is nothing but our information and data. And the places, we see it in registry, we see it in recycle bin, we see it in browser history, downloads, attachment, bash history, Mac timestamps. So many spaces are available. And in phones also, it is the same thing. According to the model of the phone, what kind of model you are using, you won't be knowing where the data is being stored. How many of you agree with me saying that whenever you are resetting your phone to factory defaults, the data is not lost? Do you agree or disagree? Yes, team. Do you agree with me that the data is going to be lost and there will be no data? It will be completely wiped off? Not lost. Priya says not lost. Yes, of course, not lost, because the data will be still there. The traces are going to be still there. If you use the proper forensics tool, you can go ahead and get it. That is first thing. Second thing, say that your laptop has been crashed. Hard disk has been broken. Okay. Hard disk has the plates. If you have had an opportunity to see the hard disk, once you open it, you will be having the disks inside. Once the disk is being broken, Do you agree that the data is been completely gone? Is the data completely gone? No. Kumari and Suresh both says no. No, you are correct. Even if the disk is broken also, we do have the tools where we can go ahead and retrieve the data. Even though phone, somebody, I think it was a couple of people who usually argue with me saying that, no, ma'am, whenever my phone is being flashed, they talk about the small technology. They say that whenever the phone is being flashed, the data is completely wiped, and I can go ahead and give it to somebody else so that they can use it. Let me bet on you saying that even though once the phone has been flashed also, we can go ahead and retrieve the data. Why am I telling this? Is the crime which is being attached with this. Say that you are purchasing a second-hand phone or second-hand laptop, and that phone or laptop was used by some terrorists. Now they want to just sell it and go off, or they might have given to somebody else by just going ahead and erasing all the data, and they will say like, I just don't want to use it. Or let me tell you, if it is terrorists, they will be very smart. They will not leave a trace at all. They will try to completely destroy that and go. This might be the small criminals who might have used somebody's laptop and now they have erased the data and they want to sell it and go off. For a low cost, they will sell it. Okay. Once they have sold that for a low cost, you have started using that, whether it is a phone or a laptop, both you might have started using it. Do you know that we can trace it back and say that this was used for criminal activities and you can be behind the bars? So apart from digital evidence, apart from knowing where the data sits, we need to be very careful on understanding where and all the data is, how that can be retrieved, where that can be retrieved, and how safe is to sell our phone also, not only taking the second-hand phone. What about you going ahead and selling your phone? Say that you are getting a new model. You are planning to get the S21 Ultra Samsung, and you want to sell your the older phone, where you will say, I'll just get the phone flashed and I'll send the phone to somebody else now, where every data of mine is being erased. But let me tell you, we can go ahead and trace it back, saying that what was the account which was used for that phone. So we are not sure where the data, and unless we are the forensics experts. So once you are a forensics expert, you will be knowing where the data can be sitting, where you can find the evidence. That is the reason we say that whenever there is an incident or crime, in that crime scene, in digital space or in the real world, there is a trace of evidence. Only thing is, being into the forensics world, if you are smart enough, surely you can go ahead and find the data for that. But the only thing is, you need to be very smart in entering, whenever you are entering into the scene, because we know that whenever it is a digital crime, we will usually look on for the unauthorized access and some modifications. Usually say that there is an incident happened. When somebody says, let me discuss with you the case about what I was handling before this session. There was one gentleman who walked into our office. He said, Madam, most of my phones in my home, actually, I feel that it has been hacked. Whether it is my phone, my wife's phone, my father's phone, I feel that it has been hacked, because I see that even though when I'm not touching my phone, I see that there are so many activities which is running on the phone. So for my phone, what I have done is I have deleted all the data. I have reset it to factory default, and I have reconfigured the phone, but still I see that I am not able to control the phone by myself, but somebody else is controlling. And he is not sure how this has happened. This is the scenario I'm giving. And let me tell you, in their house, they are having 4 phones. That is, this gentleman has 2 phones, his wife 1 phone, and his dad's 1 phone. Okay. And they all have the Wi-Fi connection at the home. And recently they have changed their residence from X place to Y place, which has been like some 30-35 days. And in this situation, where do you think the hacking might have happened or somebody might have got the access with? Any guess? Because we are checking the forensics. We are checking the spaces where we can get the data. We are checking where somebody might have entered. So in this scene, in this scenario, what I'm talking, where do you think somebody might have entered? If you do an forensics in your mind only, where do you think somebody might have entered? Or any questions regarding the scenario, what I spoke to you, you can ask me the question so that you can figure out the answer, or you can arrive to an space where you can answer the question saying that this might be the space where the criminal might have entered. You want me?
Facebook.
Kind of. Any other place? Transport agency, data sharing. Transport agency, why did you feel that transport agency? Because what is, yeah, Kritika.
And maybe through Wi-Fi connection. Most of the Wi-Fi connections do not have a guest account whenever we change passwords.
Right.
So they can just trace our old password or get into our Wi-Fi systems, and they can get details out of it.
Right, Wi-Fi router, Priya Sharma says, to some extent, yes. Actually, the case is still under the investigation, but as per my understanding, we have come to a conclusion saying that this might be because of the Wi-Fi only, because they have recently changed their residence from X place to Y place. That is the first scenario, where they have asked the vendor, that is the service provider, to go ahead and get them a new Wi-Fi connection. That is one space. Second space is, we don't know whose account is being hacked. I'm not talking about the phone accounts, because you know that all the smartphones has to be connected using a Google account with that, right? If I go ahead and hack this gentleman's say Google account, or his dad, because his dad is not a technical savvy guy, right? He just has a phone, and if somebody asks for a call, if somebody asks for a help on the phone, he will just give it up. Say that, uncle, I want to make a call, or uncle, I just want to send a email to my friend and I don't have an internet, can I use your phone? He will obviously give, because he's an elderly person. So what we are doubting is, probably the chances is, one is Wi-Fi, as you guys rightly pointed out. Second one is the account. If at all, if there is one Google account which has been hacked in these 4 phones, they can get access to Wi-Fi, and they can hack all the other phones which are connecting to the Wi-Fi now. Correct? So forensics, why I asked this question was to make you understand that whenever it is forensics, the very important thing what we suggest and depend is on the logic. How, why, as we know the questions. So we have to think in of logical connections, because in digital space, you will be going ahead and understanding the device. That is the first quality you need to have. You need to be very, you need to be very confident on how the devices are working, what kind of devices you are going to investigate. Because if I am expert in doing the forensics for my laptop, that means I know how the laptop works. At the same time, if I'm doing the forensics for mobile or cloud or IoT, I should be confident enough with the technical knowledge what is required over there to understand how does it work. At the same time, we have 2 important things. One is technology, the other one is concept, right? Say that if at all, if I say that I am good at doing a repair of TVs, TV can be anything, because the technology is almost same, whether it is my Samsung TV, or it is my new coming MI TVs, or my old Dianara TVs. The technology remains same. The new concepts with the additional advanced technology has been added. Couple of them are LEDs, LCDs, with the added features are there. I can say that I know about the TV, but each brand has a different features and a little advanced technology added onto that. So knowing only one kind of device also will not help us out, because we have the laptops where we have the touch screens also now, correct? So evidences, when we talk about, we have the biometric evidence also, which is being added to my digital now, because I have the phone which is having the biometric, that is retina scan is there, my fingerprint is there. So both are coming into biometric also. So when I talk about the digital space now, I need to think about the knowledge of biometric science, where this science also is important for me. So whenever it is a computer forensics, what I'm talking, I'll be gathering the evidence, tracking it, and I'll try to see the technique how the attacker might have gotten. Very simple thing. As I was talking about the scene now, we will try to understand what might be the loophole where this attacker has tried to come in. Yes, of course, whenever it is digital, the first thing we will try to do is, if there is a data which has been lost or it has been stolen, we will try to recover the data. Because that as the time goes, we will be not able to get the data back. So we will try to recover the data as soon as possible. And we will try to protect the data whenever it has been recovered. And let me tell you one important thing, whatever the forensics type we talk about, whether it is email, malware, memory, network, mobile, database, cloud, IoT, whatever it is, whenever we are doing the forensics, doing the analysis, we will never do the analysis on the real time data what we have. We will always clone it, because at the time of forensics, if something goes wrong, we will be missing the actual evidence and the trace of it. So we usually recommend to go ahead and do a cloning first. Only after the cloning, we will be going ahead and doing the forensics on it. Once the forensics is being done, the storage will be taking place, because we have to go ahead and store the data of evidence, whatever we have collected. And in the phases, it will be like workstations, and we will be using the toolkits. We will initially do the pre-investigation, saying that whenever there is a case, we will try to do the pre-analysis of it. We will try to understand what the scenario was all about, because directly we can't just jump in to do the forensics. We will try to understand the whole scenario. We will try to rebuild the scenario by ourselves, and to see how it might have started, where it might have gotten a vulnerability in place, where the attacker might have gotten. So pre-investigation is nothing but doing a pre-analysis of the whole case, sit with the team, discuss with them, try to see what kind of toolkits we are supposed to use there, because every toolkits have its own way of doing the work. So knowing which kind of toolkit, it is simple as like doctors assisting you and operating you. There are so many doctors today, and we talk about the doctor saying that I have gone to XYZ hospital and that was good for my issue. Say there was a liver issue what I had. When I went to this hospital, they did a best job compared to another hospital. Because each patient is different, each doctor is different, and the way he follows is different. And for all the patients, the same doctor won't follow the same procedure also. It doesn't mean that everything will be haphazard. They will be knowing what should be done at what time. It is the same thing with the forensics team also. So they will be knowing how they are supposed to go ahead and follow the steps. Because say that I am doing a forensics for the laptop, my laptop. I am having my HP laptop. I am having a Spectral laptop. And when I am doing the investigation, I know that this is a touch screen. So whatever the procedures I need to follow, I need to make sure that there is no touch on the screen, because there is already a evidence of biometric. Might be the criminal might have touched the screen already. So I might be getting some evidence over it. So I should be very careful with this. But it is the same thing with compared to an other system where it says that it is no requirement because that guy had remotely logged in. So at that time, I'll be not worried about the screen or the keypad or anything. So all these things we do the pre-investigation first to understand how the incident might have happened. What might be the thing which might have occurred at that time? What kind of tools I need to use? Because you know that as I gave you the example of doctor only, for a treatment, say it is a operation. For a couple of operations, they will use an open surgery. They will cut the skin. For a couple, they will say that it is not required. They will use the robotic sticks. They will just make a hole, use the stick to operate. So for each incident, for each case, it is different for us. Even though sometimes the case will be similar, but the way and the procedures what the forensics experts will follow, it depends on their experience and the way finally they have to get the result. Couple of the procedures might take a long time. Couple of things might take a very short time. It all depends on the experience and the way they have been handling and what kind of incident has been happened. And at the time of investigation, they will try to do the acquisition, identification, evaluation, and they will go ahead and present all the things. And in the post-investigation, as important as we all know, we will be doing the documentation and reporting. Because we will be documenting each and everything, saying that what is that I saw at the phase 1? What is that I saw as a evidence in the browser, on the recycle bin? Do you think the recycle bin is a best space to get the data? I mean to say the evidence. Do you think that? Most of the times, yes. Because whenever it is the recycle bin, couple of the time, if you are an expert, you will be trying to delete completely, but still there is a traces, even though if it is not in the recycle bin. And couple of times whenever we are deleting, we will just delete it. But we forget saying that it will be sitting in my recycle bin for some time. Couple of the time we have configured in such a way that it has to sit for 30 days. Couple of times it has been configured saying that it has to sit for 45 days. So I have some of evidence sitting in my recycle bin also. I'm just taking an example of mobile forensics, where as we have these many forensics in list, and with the given time, I can't explain everything. I'm just picking up as one, that is mobile forensics, which is everybody's favorite piece of device in the world today, because without mobile, nobody is living. So mobile forensics deals with evidence related to mobile phone and other mobile devices. So what are the phases we follow? We try to intake, identify, pre-analysis of it, isolation, that is nothing but we will be not touching the main thing, but we will be doing the cloning part, processing, verifying, documenting and reporting, presenting that, and archiving. Archiving is nothing but storing the report for the future use. If at all, if it has to be presented in court of law, the format has to be different. If at all it has to be presented in the police station, it has to be different. For each of them, we also follow something called chain of custody. That means how these evidences will be followed from one hand to other hand. And whenever the data is being stored, what is the best way to store the data or your information? How do you store it? Again, a question for you people. How do you think is the best way to store the data? Any thoughts on it? Yes, please. Getting into my session, always people hate me because I ask a lot of questions. Whenever the data is being stored, we suggest that the data has to be encrypted. What is encryption? Or what is encrypted data? Either the one you can answer. Yes, Deepika.
Coded form.
Coded form?
Yeah, coded form. Suppose the A is encoded as a 1 and B as 2. So just the
that is cryptography what you're talking. I'm talking about encryption. Password protected. Password protected is there, but encryption is hashing the data. Hashing and encryption, both are two different stuffs what we are talking. Okay, what Deepika is talking about cryptography. So it is cryptography, encryption, and hashing. 3 things are there. So whenever it is the cryptography, that is nothing but converting the actual data. How will you differentiate encryption and crypto? Yeah, that is what I'm explaining, Swati. So whenever it is,
Sorry to interrupt. Converting the plain text to cipher text, the coded
yes,
text.
that is cryptography, right? Whenever that has been converted, and that kind of data will be encrypted, and this encrypted data you can't read it without knowing it. What is that you need to know?
Key.
Yes. What is that key called?
Encryption key.
Fantastic, Lalit. Yes, that's called encryption key. And who was that who said that whenever it is being converted, A as number 1, B as number 2? So let me tell you a simple thing. Say that the key is shift 2. That means when we write ABCD, I'm just giving you a simple example. When I'm writing ABCD as the letters till the Z, when I say shift 2, that means the cryptography follows something called that A to C will be shifted. So that shift 2 will happen and the data will be encrypted with the key of shift 2. So cryptography is a process of conversion. Okay. And the data which is being converted where you can't read it is encrypted data. To unlock or to get back to the original form, we use the encryption keys to decrypt it. So you will do that +2, that is shift 2, which is being shifted from A to C, will be shifted back from C to A when you're decrypting the data. So encryption is the best form of storing the data. And hash, next thing. What is hash? Somebody was talking about hash. What is hash? Hash technology, if you have used it already. What is hash? Okay, I'll just give you an exercise also. After the session and the event has been finished, go to Google and use the hash technology to hash any of the file. Okay. So what does it do is very simple. First thing is, whenever the hash technology is being used, that means whenever the file has been created and above that file, whether it is your basic file or whatever the file you have written, you will be going ahead and doing a hash on it. That means it will create a hash number. If you create a hash number, you will see it will be a set of digits it gives. That hash number you can copy it. Say that Deepika is sending a file to Chanama. So she will create a hash and she will send the file with the hash number to Chanama. So when Chanama opens, she can verify the hash number. If it is not matching, that means somebody has tampered the data inside the file. Even though if you make a small space, say that you will just tap in a shift, it will also create the hash in a different number. It will not create the same hash. A small dot on the file, it will not give you the same hash. So hash is created to show that the integrity of file, it has been not tampered. So once you create the hash, you will be giving the hash key saying that yes, it has been hashed, so that once it is being received at the receiver end, you can go ahead and verify that. If at all, if it is being tampered, yes, you can understand that somebody might have done something in between. So at the time of investigation, when you receive these hash numbers and if you see that somebody has used the hash, yes, you can understand that it was some sensitive file which was running around. So most of the time today, in the present world, we see that people are going ahead and using the hash whenever they are sending the data. Okay. So has anybody used it already by any chance? Anybody use the hash? You can just go to Google and use hash or create hash for your file, and you can try it after the session today. Yes, it is fun. At the same time, yes, it is a security also. There are a couple of challenges also for our digital forensic experts because of the internet usage, what we are seeing, the availability of the tools, all kind of tools we are seeing, and whenever it is a physical evidence, whenever, as I told you, the examples of getting the physical evidence, if at all, if the laptop is being connected and if it is being already been working on the internet, if somebody comes and just plugs it out, that means we are losing the data over there. So we have to have the expert who knows how to go ahead and take the evidence, how to capture that, and how to go ahead and put these devices under the investigation also. Because starting the investigation is a second procedure. Before that, you need to be knowing which devices you have to take in. And at the same time, we are seeing that nowadays we are having large space of data, which is the terabytes now, gigabytes now. So doing the analysis, trying to do the evidence collection under these things is not a joke. Because how many of you have the Facebook? I think most of you, right? Most of you might be having the Facebook. How much of data you are storing on the Facebook? Have you just thought about it? Probably sometimes, if at all, if you are having the Google Photos, it will show you some 10 years before photo, and Facebook will show the same thing like before 10 years on the same day. That means before 10 years data of yours, it is being stored in the Facebook. How many photos a single person is storing? How much of data he is storing? Only in the Facebook I'm talking. And think about the data, what we humans are storing and how much of servers are running over there. And when it comes to the evidence collection, analysis, forensics, how much of gigabit of data, terabyte of data we have to run around with and we have to juggle around with to get the evidences in place, isn't it? So challenges for the forensics expert is not that easy also. Even we are facing a lot of issues. And a couple of places, especially whenever it is a police team, we work as a third party to help the evidence collection and forensics for the police. They will say that, madam, we got the phone. They would have got the smartphone. The first thing what they would have done is they would have dipped the phone inside the water. And we do have smart guys. They will place the, you know what they do? Magnets. They place the magnets on the hard disk. We will be losing the data. So there are so many challenges even we are facing. And when it is the digital forensics, people feel that going for a training for say some month or so, they can be a digital forensics expert. No, it's not that easy. It's not that easy at all. Because whenever it is a forensic expert, one is, yes, a right training, mentoring is required under the experts. It is just like being a lawyer. After finishing your certification, you will be going ahead and working as a junior for your senior lawyers, because whatever theory you have learned, whatever the certification you have got, above that you have so many things which you have to learn under an expert. That is the same thing in the cyberspace also. Not only with the forensics, with most of the job we say that please get mentoring done under the experts. Because whenever it is a handling information, rightly as you're seeing on the screen, the volatile or the non-volatile information, like our network information, active process, logged in, open files, and whenever it is non-volatile, yes, you are having it in the files, registries, systems, configuration settings, browsers, everywhere. But still, these are all the things what you will be taught in a training. But under an expert, you will be knowing what is what, how that needs to be handled, and with the experience with your mentor, you will be understanding how difficult to be a forensics expert also. I'm just taking you through the couple of tools because we don't have time to understand each and every tool. So this tool is called FTK Imager. We will be using it for most of our photos analysis, video analysis. We will use it. We have dependency walkers. We have Wireshark. Wireshark is specially used for the traffic. Say that you can see that This is the IP address. That is the source IP address. This is the destination IP address. This is the protocol what they have used. This is the length of it and the information. And about this one line, there is the information below here. This is the information below that. So using the Wireshark, we will be understanding each traffic. We call it as packet. We will try to capture the packet and try to see what is happening in the packets. There is artifacts, just for your your logins and logouts. Using the commands, we will be checking in who had logged in, what is the activity they have done, because in the system also we have events which will be logged in. We have the applications events which will be logged in, system events logged in. So we will be checking those things also for our evidence collection. These are under your systems, like your deleted data, your temp file. Hope everybody knows about the temp file. We will be having the data sitting in the temp files. This is with the network session. We have used the netstat -f as a commander. This is a command what I have used to fetch in to see what kind of sessions are running in my network. This is in the live, I am seeing it.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
We are able to see only one slide. Are you showing anything?
Yeah, I am taking you to the next slide. I don't know if it has been hung. Just give me a second.
It is showing only first slide only.
Okay, just give me a second.
Yeah, now it is visible.
Okay, so these are the tools I had started with. This is the FTK for your image. This is the dependency walker we are using. This is for Wireshark. This is what I was explaining. This is my source address. This is my destination. This is my protocol, what it is using. This is the length and the info. I am seeing it completely. It is a server manager block protocol, SMB protocol, what it is using. The frame, complete information, I'm here seeing this. This one I'll be mainly using for my live traffic, where I'll be seeing each packet and seeing what is it doing. This is with the commands. I am just going ahead and checking what kind of users or which is the user who has logged in, who is alive still. So you can see Tom and Test are the two users. The locally what time they had logged in, what system they had used. This is where it is showing. Then is your prefetch files, your temp files. I'll be checking those things where I can get more evidences. This is also tools what I'm using. This is my network session, where in live, say that I'm sitting in a network today and I want to see how many systems are connected, how many sessions it is running. I'm just checking that using my command netstat. This is my registry. Registry is something, if you are very confident in registry, then only you have to get in, because a small mistake in your registry, it is going to spoil your whole system. So once you know about the registries, you can easily get into that and see the configuration, users, the machines, what it is doing, how it has been working, everything you can get, including the recovery files also you will see.
This is my destination source.
This is the architecture of network. We usually do it at the pre-phase. That is at the pre-analysis stage only. We will make a network diagram to understand how the traffic might be traveling. As of now, you are sitting as a host, but your router is the entry point for your network, where you will be having the firewall, IDS, servers, your switches involved. So we usually make a network diagram to understand how it is the traffic which is traveling into the network. So this is the first phase of it. So advantages.
Madam, still it is at the same slide.
It is at the same slide. I don't know.
I mean, not the
Which
first
slide you are seeing now?
It is not moving.
Artifact slide, ma'am.
Artifact slide. I don't know what has happened, because I'm in the advantages and disadvantages. Okay, I'll just get into the window again. Okay, you are able to see that now? I'm showing you the slide as advantages and disadvantages.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Now.
Okay. So as you know, we have a lot of advantages because we need to take the evidence to the court. And you must be knowing that whenever it is going to the court, we need to have the experts who will be certifying your evidence, and it will be presented through the lawyers. He can be a cyber lawyer, he can be a regular lawyer. And as of now, I see that even the legal practitioners today have to have the knowledge of cyberspace, because even in the case of murder, even in the case of robbery, there is one mobile which is being present over there. That means cyberspace is already there. So digital evidence is mandatory. And taking the digital evidence, you have to get the certification of digital evidence, which is being certified by the experts, and it will be presented in the court of law. And sometimes the expert will be called to the court of law to explain the evidence which is being presented. Because I just showed you, I'm just moving the screen. I'll just show you another one. Yeah. Are you seeing the screen which shows as Wireshark?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. If you show this as a evidence to the court, how many people as a common person can understand? Even the judge will say, "Arey yaar, what is this? What you're showing?" So sometimes they will ask the experts to come and explain them, saying that what is it, what is being spoken in that screen as a evidence. If at all, if it is digital or if it is printed, they will ask us to go ahead and explain them, saying that what is it being talking about. Say what is source, what is destination, what is time, because we know that usually time is being followed with NTP, that is Network Timing Protocol. Because I am sitting in India today, correct? But I'm accessing the server which is being sitting in America. Now the America time is midnight, 12:30, correct? So it should not show the timing of that server. It should show me the usage time as Indian. So all these things has to be explained when the evidence is being taken. And this helps the companies to gather the information on their computer system network potentially which has been compromised. Usually the evidences they will collect it, they try to understand if somebody is trying to attack them. They will do the analysis, and most of the times whenever these evidences are being collected, if the company has a research and development, they will send it for the research also. They will try to track down the criminals anywhere in the world using the evidences. They will protect the organization. They will extract and interpret the, I can say that the loophole. So whenever there is evidence, I can easily say where the loophole was. Disadvantage, most of the people, as I told you, they will be not knowing how to prove it. They don't know how to follow the chain of custody. Chain of custody is nothing but how the evidence has to be stored and sent to the next people to next people. Because you know that in the any movie scene, if you try to recall it, they will get the evidence in a piece of cover. Do you remember it? They will get it in a piece of cover and they will show this is the knife, what they used to stab that guy. But here it is a digital evidence. You can't just carry it in a cover or a paper. Because if it is a cover, somebody can put a magnet on the hard disk and the data can be lost. So it has to be packed in a way which is an insulated pack. So they need to know the chain of custody. Legal practitioners, they have a very less knowledge. That is what I said. They will ask us to come and explain them. The new technology is growing so fast, people are not able to catch hold that. The legal issues with this is, today if somebody has hacked from China, how are you going to tackle it? Because you are sitting in India, your Facebook is being hacked, but the guy who was hacked, he's sitting in China. The legal issues between in India and China, I can't go ahead and fight. I have to put it across to the right channel. And getting addressed to these things, it takes years together because we have a lot of other main issues. Because the priority for today is we have to get out of the terrorism. So we are worried about that. So that is with the forensics. I'll just quickly take you to the biometrics also because I'm having another 10-15 minutes. I'll not take you through the induction. So you know that biometrics is also important with the digital space today. As I told you, even for the phones, we use the biometric lock, facial recognitions, and as you are seeing on the screen, it is a Greek word. Bio is life, metron is measure. So that is the reason they use the word biometrics. So biometrics definition, I don't think so it is needed. It refers to the automatic identification of a person where physically he can go ahead and present something like his fingerprint. And how many of you know that there is also a biometric authentication of your pulse? Do you know that? They will record your heartbeat, and that heartbeat will be the authentication process to unlock your phone or laptop. This is a very high-end technology I'm talking about, where it is under the research and development where they are using it. So your fingerprint, your face recognition, your retina, all these things are being used to identify the person, saying that you are the right person over there. So whenever it is a biometrics, we talk about recognition, identification, and verification. Simple. We want to recognize who you are by your voice, by your fingerprint, by your face recognition, or your retina, or your heartbeat, or with your pulse. I want to understand whether it is you only. Then I'll identify you and verify you and allow you. And this is going to be under the evidence for me because we are talking about the digital evidence. So characteristics of biometrics depends on two major things. One is psychological, second one is behavioral. Because you know that in the evidences, sometimes they say that I was not the one who signed this legal agreement. Then they will say, okay, we will do an analysis on your signature. We will try to go ahead and identify who has signed. Is there any forgery? And if it is a fingerprint, we will try to see whether it is the same fingerprint. And nowadays for the registration, if somebody had registered your house or site or something, you might be knowing, they will take a photo of yours. They will take a fingerprint. Then they will ask you to register by signing. So all the formats are being used. And here we are talking more about this because everybody is having Aadhaar card. You know that when you have got the Aadhaar card done, you have signed, you have given your biometric identification, that is your retina and your fingerprints also. And if somebody has taken it from the database itself to create an other duplicate Aadhaar card, how will you recognize? Because at the end of the day, in the evidence, if I see that the fingerprint belongs to you, that means you are the culprit over there. So that is the reason we have to have all these things in place. Okay. So whenever it is a face recognition, we will be capturing your face, find the image, see the features of it, compare with the previous one, because when you are using the face recognition for your phone, you know that it will ask you to hold the phone in a proper way where it will go ahead and identify all the features and put it as a template. And then it will try to compare each time when you are unlocking it. And you might have seen that couple of phones, it will take little extra time to do the face recognition. And some phones are little faster. It depends on how quickly it can compare it. Fingerprint recognition, it is the same thing. It depends on the fingerprint and the way your lines are there on your finger. It will try to bridge it. And why we are getting it here is because nowadays all the fingerprint recognition are done using computers only. No fingerprints are being done as we were doing in the older methods. It has been used in the latest methodologies only. Even in your hand, that is your fingerprints, it sees the hand geometry. It measures all those things. That is the reason whenever you are going for another country, especially at the time of immigration, embarkation, they will try to do the fingerprints taken first. Because tomorrow, if you enter into that country and if there is any kind of crime, they will try to match these fingerprints of the guys who have entered their country. So there are so many things when it comes to the digital evidence, including our biometrics. Even your iris scanning, that is the reason at the time of your immigration, they will say that please stand and they will take a photo of it. And immediately they will try to see if there is any kind of cases registered under your name with all these biometric recognitions, whatever you have given with the name, everything, they will try to go ahead and check it in a quick manner because they have access to a lot of servers and they will be checking all those things. That is the reason they say that whenever it is an immigration, they will be having a lot of questions. They will be checking the documents. They will be going ahead and taking your biometric stuffs because these are all going to be the evidence if there is a crime or an incident which is being committed by you accidentally also. So that is the reason they will do all these things at the place of gateway. That is our airport, or sometimes if you are traveling in Europe, if you are going through the rail also, they will ask you to get the immigration done by getting down from the train. Voice recognition, yes, of course. My voice can be recognized through, if at all, if I have scared someone, if I have harassed someone on the phone, they can go ahead and capture my voice and they will try to match these things using the specific tools to recognize the voice. This is the same thing what they do nowadays to recognize the criminals who are talking on which channels. If they get a 30 seconds voice recognition, they can recognize where these guys are talking on which phone call. So advanced tools we are already having in the world today. Signature verification. This is a best example. If you have ordered online items nowadays, they will ask you to sign on the screen rather than on the papers. Most of the paper work is being done. Now we have given up with the papers. We are doing the signature on the phone itself when the guy comes in and delivers, or if at all, if it is there for any of the documentation also, we are trying to do it on the screen only, because the signature verification can be easier when you document it in a digital form. So that is the reason they are trying to do it, and the collection of it is easy. At the same time, storage is also going to be easier, because if you are going ahead and taking the signature on the paper, scanning it, storing it, and then trying to go ahead and verify it with the other paper, than that, the quicker one will be with the screens itself. Keystrokes identification. The best example is if you had seen the older ATMs, try to see that they will be having the metal keypads. So whenever it is a metal keypads, we have something called thermostat cameras. If you have keyed in the numbers and if you use the thermostat cameras, you can recognize what keys they have typed in. Again, an evidence. One is with the plastic keys. Yes, of course, we recognize using the speed, pressure, the time taken, the words, the hitting, behavior, how they stroke the keys. So all these things are being used for our evidences. We do have a tool. This is for an additional information I'm giving. So we do have the tool where it will just try to capture the speed of the keystroke, what you are typing in, and it will try to record what key you might have typed in. So we have advanced tools nowadays to collect the evidences. So applications, you know that whenever it is a biometric, we are using in so many places to access our ATMs, cell phones, desktops, and the same thing is being used to identify the criminals also. Because using this biometrics, especially even in the cars today, we are having the biometric locks for that. In the airport security, I have already explained to you. So we have the security also in the place. At the same time, if you want to collect the evidence, you have a way to do it using your biometric and the digital evidence together. So we have another 8 minutes left. With the biometrics and the digital evidence, what I have spoken, it's very less because the given time is 1.5 hours for me. That is the 19 minutes what I have spoken. And as I'm talking about the digital evidence and the biometrics, every domain today, whether it is a government, IT, ITES, academic, satellites, even today in the satellites, we know that there are so many biometric identification and authorization what we are using, because we have the experts who will come and use their thumb impression to go ahead and unlock it. So we are using it in all the levels, not only in the phones I'm talking today. We are using at the satellite level. So whenever it comes to the digital evidence, the biometric, yes, of course, it plays an amazing role and important role. And having these things digitized and storing it, yes, at the storage also we are getting the evidences for us. And the importance of storage, yes, it is going high every day, because we know that now, especially after the pandemic, our 90% of the life is in the digital space only. And any crime today, whether it is the bank issue what you are talking, or some other issue which is the major, which we talk about, the terrorism today, everything needs a digital evidence, and the biometric is going hand on hand with these things. And we learning in these skills, especially for the digital forensics being a skill with your biometrics also added onto it, yes, of course, you can suggest your students saying that they can pick it up as a career. And getting a job, it is wide open. They have it in police, they have it in banking, they have it in every sector today. And let them not feel that having only this skill as a digital forensics expert, I'll be just sitting in a police station or helping the police people to understand whatever the evidence they have and get them the evidence, do the analysis. No, beyond that the work is. As I told you, for the development we want to stop the crime. Being an expert, you can say that these are the places I have seen the evidences. So we can go ahead and do the better tools, better evidence tools for tomorrow. So a lot of job opportunities are also open. Only thing is giving the youngsters or filling the young mind with the right knowledge and the right skill today. Yes, cyberspace is wide open with lot of opportunities. Only thing is the students has to know how big this digital space or the cyberspace is today, because the jobs are wide open and people are still running around to understand why the job opportunity is available, but still they are not able to fill. The employers I'm talking. Most of the organization, they are looking for the employees, but they are not able to fill because they are not getting the right skilled guys over there. And getting the right skilled and giving that knowledge is with the faculties today. And faculties knowing about it, yes, it is important. That is the reason I didn't take you much about the technology, because we are not here to go ahead and train you saying that how the digital forensics has to be done, but giving you an eye opener saying that how far it is wide open today, why it is not getting filled, why the youngsters are not picking, because of less awareness. So talking about all these things, people might be willing to know, who am I? This is the slide, talks about me, a quick slide. I am here for 21 years now. So my job is, I am also an forensics expert. I have done my forensics from United States. And as a cyber expert, I'm also a trainer. I'm also a chief information security officer, a senior auditor. I'm also a builder, that is the syllabus builder for the advanced devices. Today, I build the syllabus for them. I have written the syllabus for most of the universities like Argentina University and our National Law School and most of the other universities. I'm taking the responsibility of it. And with my job responsibility, it is end to end with the cybersecurity. I take care of it. And with a given time, I hope I have given you a bit of knowledge about the forensics and why it is so important to understand the biometrics and the digital evidence together and hands on hands. And any question for the last 3 minutes, I'm with you, because that is the time it has been given to me. Over to you, Chinama madam.
Yeah. Ma'am, there is a long text here. Let me read out.
Yeah.
Ma'am, can you put some more light on signature verification in forensics and applications of signature? What significant role does signature plays? Are automatic tools used for signature verification today?
Yes. There are so many tools what they are using for the signature verification, and in today's world they are saying start using the digital signature, that is your DSCs. And again, whenever you are using the DSCs, you have to be very careful with the tools whatever they are using in the FSL, that is with your biometric signature is one. And hope you know there are two types of signature. One is your digital signature certificate and digital signature. So totally it becomes three now. One is your regular paper signature, what you do, digital signature certificate, what you get, and digitally what you sign. So all the three things carries three different, not only three different kind of tools for the verifications. They use their own tools from each country today, because it is the availability one thing and the technology. Because if you say that I am going to Israel, they are using the advanced tools where they are comparing it as it has been signed on the screens itself. And if you are comparing with the paper signature, they have to combine the paper signature which has to be scanned in, where I have showed you a couple of tools today. They will scan it, they will try to put it on the digital page, and then they will try to scan it off. So we do have the automatic tools also, we do have the old methodology also, because in India we have not completely moved from paper to our digital space yet. We are on the process of doing one by one. Yes, and somebody is asking.
Somebody is asking your email ID.
Yes, sure. I'm typing there. It is shubhasunil@gcsrt.com. If you want to send me the questions, you can follow me on my Facebook. And every day I am giving the lecture in regional language on the podcast, that is Go Cyber podcast. Today's topic was very interesting. It was regarding the satellites I have started, why it is important to be a cyber expert for satellite division. So every day I'm covering almost for 1 week, I'm covering one domain, talking about what are the skills somebody needs, how they can gain a job over there. And last week we finished it for automobiles. The whole week we covered with the automobiles. Now we are covering with the automobiles has been done. Now it is with the satellites, what I am taking through. ISP is done. So most of things need cyberspace, and yes, digital skills are very much needed, team. Any other questions? And I'm giving you my hotline number also. This hotline number is used if at all, if you feel that you are a victim, you can always talk to us. We can help you out there. And if you feel that, names of the tools. Yeah, sure. Priya Sharma, right? Just give me a message. I'll send you the tools if at all, because a couple of them are the paid version. Because most of the tools, if you are looking for the what I can say, free tools, don't trust them. Not all the tools are going to give you. And if you are taking it to the, yeah, please, yeah, Priya, you can mail me. I can send you the paid version and free tools just for the practice sake. Because free tools, if you take evidence and if you put it in the court of law, they won't accept.
Yeah, I think we can wind up the session. Thank you very much, ma'am, for an interactive and informative session. Thanks a lot. Yeah, our next session will